I'm Cherise Gibson.
And I'm Katie Moore. The state has confirmed a presumptive positive test for coronavirus in Orleans Parish.
Allarme sicurezza contro il coronavirus.
جلوگیری از گسترش ابتلا به ویروس کرونا جدید.
97 personnes sont décédées, ce qui constitue le bilan le plus lourd en une journée.
Now the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that, right? Coronavirus. They are politicizing it. We didn't. And this is their new hoax.
Like most of America, it took New Orleans a while to register the severity of the pandemic. On March 10th, when the national total number of cases climbed past 1,000 with 37 deaths, New Orleans had only 3 confirmed cases and no deaths. St. Patrick's Day weekend came around, and people were still partying. New York had already taken mitigation measures, shutting much of the city down, but there didn't seem to be much cause for alarm in the Big Easy, despite the fact that the city, with its crowds perennially celebrating, was essentially a petri dish for the virus. No one seemed to know how it would alter the course of daily life and what it would mean, historically. But reports from around the world made it clear that the virus could ravage cities quickly and mercilessly. On March 13th, Governor John Bell Edwards issued an order prohibiting gatherings of more than 250 people. But New Orleans seemed to have difficulty enforcing that rule. Bourbon Street and Jackson Square were packed with throngs of tourists, and the city in general was open for business as usual. But it wouldn't be long before the world would grind to a halt, and New Orleans would be brought to its knees. New Orleans is a small town that consistently punches above its weight. The entire city could fit inside of Brooklyn, but it exists in the world's imagination as a culinary and cultural epicenter. 18 million people visit the town every year to drink and eat and be merry, which makes tourism the driving force of the New Orleans economy. Some say that's made it become something of a Disneyland for adults. But people from around the world visit because of the traditions and festivals and just the sheer magic of the Big Easy that makes it unlike any other place on Earth. New Orleans puts on 130 festivals every year. That's basically one festival every 3 days. There's an annual macaroni and cheese festival here. Mac and cheese. And a few years ago, when a sinkhole emerged on Canal Street in early May, New Orleans planned a Sinkhole de Mayo party around it, until someone came to their senses and questioned the wisdom of hundreds of people dancing around the edges of a sinkhole. New Orleans has a lot of problems, and seemingly only one solution for all of them. Dress up and celebrate. It's not that New Orleanians dismiss problems. It's just that they instinctively realize that the most precious part of the city is its culture. The playwright Tennessee Williams once said that America has only 3 cities: New York, San Francisco, and New Orleans. Everywhere else is Cleveland. And he was right. As most metropolises were homogenized by franchises and packaged experiences, New Orleans is one of the few classic American cities that maintains its own identity. We still mob tables full of hot crawfish. We still second line with brass bands. The live music scene thrives in storied venues, and historical associations have kept New Orleans looking like, well, New Orleans, with its beautiful cocktail of French, Spanish, and Italian architectures. All of this makes it a town of impossible beauty and devastating charm. There's an old joke that says New Orleans is called the Big Easy because it's so easy to visit the city, maybe for some po' boys, cold beers, only to wake up in a bar 30 years later asking, what the hell happened to my life? It's not hard to fall in love with New Orleans. Once the virus showed its teeth and its gruesome agility, New Orleans started to worry. On March 22nd, the Big Easy had 418 confirmed cases of the virus. Governor Edwards issued a statewide stay-at-home order effective until April 12th. But then, in just 2 weeks, the number of cases skyrocketed to over 5,000 in a tiny city with a population of less than 400,000. Shops and restaurants closed their shutters, not knowing when or even if they would open again. But while the streets vacated, parks were filled with bicyclists, runners, and even certain plague revelers and laissez-fairers who continued to gather, not so much in defiance to guidelines, but more because isolation was just so unnatural for New Orleanians. Looking back, there's little wonder why New Orleans became a hotbed for the virus. Like Italians, who flock in piazzas and say hello and goodbye with several cheek kisses, New Orleanians are affectionate people who don't need an excuse to go out and hug each other. The stay-at-home order kept getting extended, first until April 30th, then until May 16th, but as the number of cases and deaths continued to rise, there was a growing sense that New Orleans wouldn't reopen anytime soon. Last call had been announced in a town littered with bars that never close. And some didn't. Bars that served food stayed open, serving drinks for off-premise consumption. And in a city where you can drink outdoors, many took the chance to blow off some steam, vent their worries, and offer their perspectives on the virus.
Well, like all of us, I mean, it has definitely put a burden on people's lives, mentally, especially financially. I mean,
it's slowing down too many things for these big cities that's just used to motion,
I work at Lucky's on St. Charles. It's like 24/7. Even when I wasn't working, I'd stop in, check on my people. Like, there's people that live there, basically. Really, honestly, try not to think about it too much and just wash my hands. Don't cough on anybody. I got masks in the car. If I went somewhere people were coughing a lot, I'd probably go pop it on. But I haven't worn one publicly yet.
I haven't been sick or anything, so I've been staying away from people. I got my mask, so I've been doing a lot of internet.
Playing with the dog, fucking my fiance.
As far as safety, we disinfect everything and are making sure that no one's coming in sick or anything like that. I don't feel at risk at all. But we can sell it to them, they can take it outside or to the park, and which is where a lot of people go, or they walk around the neighborhood with their drinks. And so there's a lot of people still doing that.
Personally, I just want to go to work.
Yeah, that's it.
I just want to go to work. I don't care about the corona. None of that.
Miss second line.
Yeah, I can't get out there.
Outside eating crawfish.
Can't do nothing but sit outside and look at each other.
That's basically it. Sit there the full walls. We ain't trying to do that.
That's it.
But we gotta do what we gotta do. Hopefully it ends. They say the numbers going down, so that's a good thing.
I'm praying, because corona, we gotta go. This is not how the Big Easy is. It's too quiet. This ain't the Big Easy, this the Big Quiet. Ain't something right. The Big Dead is dead. The Big Dry, ain't nothing going on. It's a ghost town. I can hear myself talk. Woo! See?
Well, yeah, another issue is mental health within the loneliness of your home, and you're, just staying there day after day, and that's important. And how do you, compare or weigh that to? I don't know if you should to the more devastating consequences of COVID, like death. It's like I don't want to be a part of that problem, but also don't want to be super anxious and depressed in my house and not having had sunlight in a while. But it is alarming for me to see this many people out here, and I would say like 1 in 200, 300 are like wearing a mask.
Other signs of life remained in the boarded and shuttered city, too. The streetcar still ran on St. Charles, that august thoroughfare that curls its back against the Mississippi River. Often, the conductor was its lone masked rider. At first, it seemed strange and futile, seeing the conductor hurtling this empty steel can from uptown all the way down to the French Quarter, then back. It was as if New Orleans had its own Sisyphus, the mythological king condemned to push a boulder up a hill until it rolled down the other side, forcing him to fetch it and start over again, eternally. But eventually, the streetcar became a sign of hope, a symbol of the kind of persistence that New Orleans knows so well. But when night fell over the city, everything felt surreal. The plague had swept through New Orleans like some awful shadow. The streets were empty, and the city was shrouded in an eerie silence.
How's this been for y'all as a couple? Like more time together, or y'all driving each other nuts?
We spend a lot of time together anyway, so it's like normal, but you be ready to go. I be like, wait, I'm tired of looking at you too, baby.